Please consider supporting on Patreon. YouTube is suppressing videos like mine, and I'd really like to be able to continue making content. For $4 a month, you get early ad-free access to all videos that will be mostly uncensored. If that interests you, the link will be in the description and the pinned comment. Thank you. Diana Jean Lovejoy set up a channel under the name Heavy DJ on November 16, 2008, where she posted 21 videos with 182,000 views total and gained just over 400 subscribers. A lot of the videos were very short clips of nature, diving, and animals, with the vast majority of her views coming from a cooking tutorial that she posted. But away from her posts on YouTube, there was turmoil in her private life, ongoing issues that would eventually lead to her ex-husband being shot in September of 2016. Her marriage to Greg Mulvihill had broken down, and they separated in July of 2014. A custody battle started, where Diana made some allegations that must have been ultimately decided to be false, as the ruling of the court was due, and it was going to be for joint custody and instructing Diana to pay Greg $120,000. Weldon McDavid Jr. was a firearms instructor that had previously trained Diana, and had also installed a security system for her home. The two became romantically involved, despite the fact that McDavid Jr. was married at the time, and hatched a plot together when it became apparent that the custody battle was not going the way she wanted. Greg was lured to a remote location near Avenida Soledad after a phone call from someone pretending to be a private investigator, who claimed that they had information that he would, quote, want to see regarding the custody dispute. What McDavid and Lovejoy had not counted on was that Greg did not come alone and brought his neighbor with him. Diana had dropped Weldon off at the location to wait on Greg's arrival. When he reached the location, McDavid opened fire. Greg would survive the attack, being shot in the arm, and would raise the alarm, causing McDavid to be tracked down and arrested. Once in custody, it didn't take long for him to turn on the woman that had hired him to shoot Greg, and she too was arrested. McDavid would claim that his level of marksmanship, due to him being a US Marines veteran and a sharpshooter, was high enough that had he been shooting to kill, he would have achieved it, even, quote, with his head turned the other way. He claimed that he had intended only to shoot the light that was being carried by Greg. Diana claimed that, quote, I would never take my son's own father away from him. She denied that she had plotted the entire thing and paid Weldon to shoot her ex-husband. However, the evidence against the pair was extensive and damaging. Footage is available online of her appearing to faint as she is in the final stages of being sentenced for the crime. As the judge reads the sentence of life imprisonment with a minimum term of 26 years, her face goes pale and she starts to sway in her seat. The judge moves on to sentence her co-accused, McDavid, but is interrupted by Lovejoy collapsing onto the table. Weldon McDavid also received a life sentence, with a minimum term set as 50 years, and is unlikely to see the light of day as a free man ever again. Weldon McDavid Jr. spoke of the affair with Diana and described it as, quote, unsatisfying, and said that his biggest regret was cheating on his wife, which was quite a claim to make when facing life in prison.
Weldon told us it was ridiculous to believe he would kill someone for $2,000 and called having sex with Diana his biggest regret.
It was wholly unsatisfying. If I could only take back one thing, I would take that out of the equation.
Being with Diana?
Yes.
You wouldn't take back shooting Greg?
If there was only one thing I could take away, I would take that away, because I hurt my wife, and that means more to me than anything.
Did Diana Lovejoy have a hold on you? Was she manipulating you in any way?
No.
It's been said that you have a misguided hero complex. What do you say to that?
I'm no one's hero. Not at all. And, if trying to help someone is a misguided hero, then, so be it.
The channel Daniel Lab 7102 was made on the 28th of February 2009, where it gained 724 subscribers while posting 5 videos and getting over 200,000 views. Within his description, a second channel is mentioned that was set up on the 26th of June 2010. This second channel had 4 videos and 144,000 views, a single video talking about what the user planned to post, and the other 3 consisting of clips from a popular UK soap opera, EastEnders. But the person behind the channel, Daniel Bartlam, would become infamous for his association with a different UK soap. He became known as the Coronation Street Killer. On April 25, 2011, 14-year-old Daniel crept into the room of his mother, Jacqueline, as she was sleeping. He woke her up and then struck her at least 7 times with a claw hammer, killing her. He then set a fire in his house that they shared in Nottingham, using petrol as an accelerant and newspaper that he had spread around the room. Emergency services responded to the reports of the fire. His mother was 47 years old at the time, and her body was so badly burned that she had to be identified by dental records. Initially, at his interview, he claimed that an intruder had broken in and both carried out the attack and then tried to burn the house down. He later changed his story, instead claiming he had an argument with his mother and attacked her in the heat of the moment. However, authorities found a story on his computer that had been written and then deleted, where a character named Daniel Bartlam, his own name, attacked and murdered their mother in the exact same manner that he would do to her. The reason he became known as the Coronation Street Killer was due to his later claim that he was, quote, inspired to carry out the attack after seeing a character in the TV show named John Stape attacking someone with a hammer. At his trial, he denied murder and claimed that he was provoked. He also claimed to hear voices, but he was assessed by multiple psychological experts and deemed mentally competent to stand trial. Once convicted, despite his young age and the usual precedent in UK law to protect the identities of criminals under 18, his name and image were allowed to be circulated by the judge due to the heinous nature of the crime. He was given a life sentence. His mother's partner at the time of the murder, Simon Matters, said that Daniel was a difficult young man and damaged toys that he owned. He would urinate in the boxes of action figures, as well as defecating in his room, and then hiding the towels he used to clean himself. He was also a bit of a fantasist and would disappear into worlds of his own. The last update on his current status came on December 30th, 2024, when it was reported that he was being moved to an open prison. Simon, at the time of this transfer, gave a witness impact statement where he said that he could almost accept if Daniel had murdered Jacqueline by accident in an argument, but the premeditated and planned nature of the blatant attack meant that he considered him truly evil. Daniel has been the subject of many TV shows since, due to the brutal nature of the crime and his young age, and would be nearly 30 years old as of the time of writing. The channel CreepyPastry666 is still up as of the time of writing and has 11 videos and 170 subscribers. The majority of the videos are forms of creepypasta. The channel was started on June 28, 2016, has a My Little Pony character as an avatar and a description in Spanish that roughly translates to, "This dark night, madness tortures you." With a total view count just north of 19,000, there is little to make this channel stand out from many other sorts of edgy ones like it, especially in that era, but the channel owner and his actions would lead some to maybe view it as more of a glimpse into the dark and troubled mind of a man who would go on to commit a terrible crime. Federico Guevara Elizondo was born on January 2, 2001 in Mexico, and as a teenager attended the Colegio Americano de Noreste. This was a private school, and as such, it was exempted from some high security protocols that had been rolled out across most of Mexico's public schools in response to an uptick in violence among students. Known as the Safe School Program, it involved the searching of backpacks of students in order to dissuade the school population bringing in anything illegal. Private schools, however, were not forced to comply with this, and many didn't. This was generally due to objections from the parents of the pupils not wanting their children subjected to these invasive additional security measures. Federico had apparently suffered from depression for some time and was receiving treatment for it. Later reports would state that he struggled with suicidal ideation and other non-specific mental illnesses, but the extent to which he was disturbed became tragically clear on January 18, 2017. He would attend school as normal and sat in the back of the classroom. At around 9 in the morning, he would reach into his backpack and produced a .22 semi-automatic handgun with which he immediately opened fire on his classmates. Several would be struck, at least one at point-blank range, and he would also shoot and wound the teacher, Cecilia Solis. His classmates ranged in age from 14 to 17. Federico then turned the weapon on himself, but he missed the shot. Further trigger pulls indicated that the gun was out of ammunition, but he would reload from his backpack. Authorities responded to the scene, and Federico and the victims were all taken to hospitals. The teacher would end up dying from her wounds, as well as Federico himself, who had succumbed to his own injuries. A 15-year-old and two 14-year-olds who were shot were badly injured, but would eventually make recoveries. As well as the shock that would be expected from a school shooting like this, further outrage was generated when CCTV footage from inside the school leaked, which showed the entire incident. While it was taken down, it had already circulated around social media, and the availability of this footage was heavily criticised. As well as scrutiny of whether the Safe School program would have prevented this tragedy, many questioned if there could have been warning signs in Federico that could have been picked up on. Was his YouTube channel indicative of these dark intentions, or just a symptom of a mind that was overly fascinated with the macabre? If you search up the channel name of Prism55, you will find a banner stating that it has been deleted due to violating the terms of service on YouTube, and it's possible that none of the videos hosted on this channel, or Prism55 Games and Prism55 Blogs, the other two associated with this user, actually violated any terms themselves. Instead, it was the actions of the man behind them that led to their deletion. These channels belong to Juraj Krajic. If you look into the archives, you can find a snapshot taken on January 29th, 2022 that shows 8,620 subscribers to the main channel, but no videos present. Some information suggests that this channel is used primarily for posting memes, and that one in particular, based on Jojo Siwa, garnered a few million views. The profile picture is of Peter Griffin from Family Guy, and the banner is a crude, hand-drawn picture of two stick figures, one with a pickaxe and the channel name. The main channel was set up on November 6, 2014. The Vlogs channel was established on August 5, 2016 and has no videos and a negligible subscriber count. The gaming channel, Prism55 Games, was started on November 24, 2014 and has two videos that both showcase Mineplex gameplay. The first is less than a minute long and the second around 10 minutes, but they have only 31 and 57 views respectively. Again, if you try and pull up any of these channels in the current day without the use of an archive, they're simply wiped from the site, with the same banner stating that they violated the terms of service. This is due to the actions of the channel owner, Juraj Krajic, on October 22, 2022. His plan had been to kill the then Prime Minister of Slovakia, Edward Heger, but he realised he wouldn't get close. He moved to a bar that he had selected as his backup plan. He targeted the Taplerin bar, located on Savox Street in Bratislava, which was a popular hangout for members of the LGBT community. He hung around outside of it for up to half an hour before two victims sat down and he approached them. There's no evidence that he targeted them individually or personally. They became his victims simply because of their sexuality and the place they chose to spend their time that day. Juraj approached them and opened fire with his handguns, killing both and injuring one of the bar employees. He then fled the scene, taking the gun with him. Having fired 8 times, authorities would respond at 7:16 p.m. His Twitter account, NTMA0315, was reactivated shortly before his crime and shortly after. He used his phone to send out a number of tweets. The first had a series of hashtags such as Bratislava, hate crime, gay bar, and Bratislava again. The second retained the Bratislava hashtag and stated, quote, "feeling no regrets, isn't that funny?" As authorities responded to the scene of the crime, he moved about the city, avoiding capture. In fact, it took authorities a while to even realize that this was a targeted hate crime, rather than anything else. Juraj continued to move about the city, posting to various places online. He had outlined his intentions to do something drastic that same morning online, and was met with the usual levels of skepticism that these sorts of claims tend to attract. He interacted with other users and posted about his ideals and what he had done. It didn't take long to link him to his online accounts, and they also soon found a manifesto that he had written titled "A Call to Arms." In it, he outlined his sprawling opinions of thoughts, ones that apparently varied heavily throughout his life, but always had an anti-Semitic and extreme tinge to them. It was seen that a number of other attacks, like the Buffalo shooting earlier that same year, and the Christchurch rampage of 2019, had heavily inspired both his beliefs and his actions. He returned to his family home sometime between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock, where he argued with his parents, and also made them aware of what he had done. They chose not to turn him in or report it to authorities, something that they were later charged with before it was dropped. By 10:30, authorities had identified him through work by their intelligence agency. Just before 11 p.m, he sent a text message to his father stating, quote, "We will see each other on the other side." His father had been a minor figure within a local right-wing party, and while some tried to tie his son's rhetoric and actions back to him, the more the authorities found out about Juraj's online presence, the more they became convinced that his ideals and actions were his own, although they had been heavily influenced by some groups that he had interacted with in various places online. Juraj posted online again after the shooting, and before he took his own life, calling it a, quote, 2-to-1 kill-death ratio, and describing it as not bad. Juraj took a picture of himself and posted it with the caption implying that it would be the last image that anyone would see of him before taking his via self-inflicted gunshot wound on a grassy hill near to his family home, where he was found by authorities. Ethan Blair Miller was born on October 31st, 2001. He set up the YouTube channel Wrath of Man 22 sometime between 2020 and 2022, where some sources state he had posted videos of him demonstrating various weapons and training with them, but this is very difficult to validate. That's because his channel has been completely wiped from the internet. No variation on the name, search terms, or even looking through the archives brings up anything other than an error. He attended high school in Mountain View, where he was considered an outcast and remembered as angry by his classmates. He was always getting into fights, and some classmates recall that he may have been bullied to some degree. As it happens, Ethan Blair Miller would gain more notoriety from his real-life actions than he ever achieved on the internet. On August 28, 2022, the then 20-year-old Ethan entered a Safeway grocery store in Bend, Oregon, a location he had previously worked at. He was armed with an AR-15 assault rifle and a shotgun with an additional backup shotgun and a number of Molotov cocktails in his vehicle. He had left his home just after 7 p.m. with the weapons and wearing a tactical vest before shooting into his own Ford pickup. Making his way on foot, he would continue to fire sporadically, hitting various objects as well as opening fire on a vehicle and causing the driver to suffer minor injuries as the window was shot out. He made his way to a shopping center where he continued to fire his weapon before entering the Safeway store. Here, Ethan started shooting, and the first victim was an 84-year-old man named Edward Bennett, who suffered 5 gunshot wounds. Other customers would offer what aid they could, but Edward would die in the hospital from his injuries. As Ethan continued through the store, he would fire indiscriminately. An employee named Donald Ray Surratt hid as he heard the gunshots start, and when Ethan came close, ambushed him and stabbed him. Despite his best efforts to overpower and disarm him, Ethan ultimately only dropped his shotgun and shot Donald with the AR-15. He then retrieved the shotgun and killed Donald with it. At this final confrontation, Ethan stalked the aisles a little longer, still firing off rounds as he went, but not hitting or injuring anyone else. Eventually, he would sit down in one of the aisles and use his shotgun to end it. The total time between Ethan reaching the parking lot and taking his own in the aisle was 3 minutes, at exactly the same time as emergency services were called and responded to find Ethan already dead. Authorities would recover multiple rounds and shell casings from the Safeway, the parking lot, the shopping center, and Ethan Miller's apartment, as well as discovering his unused arms stash in his truck. Between Ring doorbell footage of him leaving his apartment and CCTV en route, there was almost a complete video timeline of his actions. Authorities chose to issue a censored version of portions of it at a later date. In the aftermath, much was made of the numerous things that the gunman made to the band 9 Inch Nails. For one thing, the black t-shirt that he wore as he carried out his rampage had the word "hurt" written on it in red writing, a reference to their well-known song, famously covered by Johnny Cash. Secondly, when authorities began to dig into the background of Ethan Miller, they found a journal he had typed up that was titled "The Downward Spiral of Ethan Miller," clearly based on the 9 Inch Nails album, The Downward Spiral. In this document, he outlined his various motivations for the act that he committed, and there were a multitude of reasons he gave. It was this document that made authorities realize that Safeway was actually his second plan. His initial idea was to shoot up his high school. In his online diary, he showed an obsession with a concept that he referred to as Doomsday, where he would wreak havoc and take the lives of upwards of 40 people. This manifesto, that was pulled from the internet after 12 hours and had its archive read an estimated 500,000 times, contained him admitting being inspired by the Columbine shootings, as well as the following quotes prior to his shooting. He said, "I'm obsessed with Doomsday now. I can't wait to die," and "F it, I'm done waiting. I can't wait any longer. The rage has become unbearable." He had felt lonely and isolated and struggled to gain any form of meaningful romantic relationship, but no one knew just how dark his intentions were until after the fact. Everton Brown was born on January 8, 1965, and set up his YouTube channel in 2009 at the age of 44. The channel is named Federalistify and has 234 subs and 11 videos, amassing in excess of 40,000 views. His most popular video is titled Cruelty or Justice, which accounts for 66,000 of these views. It's basically, and there is no way to describe this tastefully, a video of his dog defecating in his yard, while the commentary provided by Everton over the top seems to imply that the FBI targeting and harassing him for years has somehow led to his dog doing this more than normal.
This is my dog. This is what the FBI does. I'm trying to get a good shot. It's dark. I got the lights out. I'm trying to get a shot. Look at this here. Look. You see that? See that? Is that justice? That's the FBI at work. This is the 5th time my dog done went to the bathroom today since about 10:30 right now. It's almost 4 o'clock, I think it is. I mean, you know, he's 8 years old. And for his whole 8 years, he has been shitting blood and I had 2 dogs. I had 2 dogs, and this is what they had to go through. This is what the FBI do. It's not pure water yet, but it's liquefied. Look at that, man. Look at that. Look at that, man. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that shit, man. Wow. This is the 3rd consecutive time, like I said. Is Pooper turned hard?
The comments are mainly, and possibly understandably, asking what the FBI has to do with the video of his dog doing its business in the yard. And if we look at his other videos, we see similar themes of strange behaviour. He has a few of what he claims are drones flying overhead, which he believes to be filming or following him, and many of the videos that feature members of the public or staff at establishments show him acting erratically and presuming that any of these negative interactions are because of the FBI, or more examples of him being harassed and tortured by them. Some of the behaviours that he exhibited in his videos were similar to people who see themselves as targeted individuals or fear that they are victims of gang stalking. This is where people truly believe that many of the 3-letter agencies and/or police and other groups are deliberately persecuting them for no reason other than to torture or harass them. Some of his interactions with authorities over the years, as well as the way he behaves in his videos and the accounts of his neighbours and those that knew him, paints a picture of a man who was under severe mental distress, one who suffered from delusions that would soon prove deadly. And this would all come to a head in May of 2021, when he would arm himself at his home in Woodlawn, Baltimore, and go next door to his neighbour's home. There, he would argue with them, and then both shoot and stab 41-year-old Ishmael Quintalina, who would die of his injuries. Ishmael's wife, Sarah Alcotti, tried to escape, but was shot and killed as she ran out of the house. Hearing the commotion, 2 other neighbours came out to see what was happening, and Everton opened fire on them as well. Both were hit, and one of them, 24-year-old Sagar Gimaya, would die of the injuries. Everton then returned to his home briefly, long enough to set a fire to burn it down, and then drove off in his vehicle, which also contained homemade explosives. When police responded to calls about the shooting, they found Brown in a parking lot, still armed. He would refuse to drop his weapons and was shot and killed by police. His channel remains up, showing a glimpse into the mind of a man who was truly troubled and seemed utterly convinced that the powers that be were out to get him, beliefs that would result in the deaths of 3 others, as well as his own. At first glance, the channel 1021 Big Daddy seems like the sort of low-key and sweet slice of life family content that used to be everywhere on YouTube. Everything on it features the whole family in a number of both sweet and occasionally silly videos, with little consideration for production value or mass appeal. It was set up on January 28, 2011, and features 5 videos with 16 subscribers at the time of writing, and just over 10,000 views. But it's hard to tell how many of these views came organically, and how many are from people who sought the channel out after the actions of the owner and his wife became public knowledge. In fact, the most viewed video is a fairly sweet montage of various family pictures over music, with the comments disabled, but most of the comments on the second most viewed video give an indication as to the true nature of the uploader. Christopher Fattori. The story starts long before YouTube, with a couple named Bill and Bridget Harrison, who would adopt a 6-month-old child named Caleb. Caleb Harrison would grow up with his adoptive family, and while he had some issues at school, things were looking up when he met Melissa Merritt at work in 2000. He was 27 years old and she was 19, but the pair were besotted with each other and the relationship moved fast. They were married, bought a house and had 2 children together, a son and a daughter, over the course of the next few years, but cracks began to show. Caleb was said to drink to excess, and his main complaints about Melissa was that she, quote, made stories up. In 2005, there was an altercation at the house that led to Caleb's arrest. He was alleged to have hit her in an argument that he claimed she started. This was the start of their separation, and he moved back in with his adoptive parents, but was involved in a car crash shortly after. He had been drink driving when he collided with a taxi, killing the driver and injuring the 4 passengers. Released on bail and under house arrest, Melissa reported a break-in at her home and claimed Caleb was responsible. At this time, he was severely injured from the crash and could not walk without crutches, so the allegation was deemed false. She would report the same thing multiple times, and every time, authorities could prove it wasn't Caleb. The same year, Caleb was allowed limited access to their shared children. Around the same time, Melissa met a man named Christopher Fattori online, and they fell for each other. He was a large, well-built man, standing 6'4", and having previously worked as a bouncer. By the next year, the two planned to be married, but Melissa was still technically married to Caleb. Instead, they had a wedding celebration and went on to have another 4 children together. By this point, Caleb had been granted 50-50 custody of the 2 children he shared with Melissa, but it was his adoptive parents that did most of the driving and child rearing, a situation that infuriated her. She reported multiple incidents where she claimed the children had been hurt by Caleb, but they were again all proven unfounded. At the end of 2008, Caleb was jailed again for drink driving. However, the courts allowed his parents to maintain the custody arrangement for their children, with them taking their son's 50% share in a decision that the court stated were best for the children. Again, this sat very badly with Melissa, and together, she and Christopher made a plan to abscond with the children. In April of 2009, Bill Harrison, Caleb's father, was found dead in a small bathroom at the house he shared with Bridget. Melissa, Christopher, and the children then disappeared off the radar. It took 7 months for them to be tracked by authorities, at which point Melissa was charged with abduction in November of that same year. The 2 children shared with Caleb were placed back with their grandmother, and Caleb was released from prison, restoring some stability in a year of tragedy and chaos. Melissa was released from jail as well, but was forbidden from having direct contact with the Harrisons or approaching their house. She broke these conditions by sitting in the car outside as Christopher spoke to the Harrisons, and when they reported it, she was arrested again. On April 21st of 2010, one day before the hearing about the previous abduction, Bridget Harrison was found dead in the family home at the foot of the stairs by Caleb and Melissa's 8-year-old child. People around the family were now becoming a little suspicious of the 2 allegedly natural deaths of the 2 grandparents a year apart in what they felt were strange circumstances, with Melissa's inability to stay away from the family. Authorities initially suspected Caleb, but he had a strong alibi and suggested that they look into where Chris and Melissa were. The official verdict on the death was no foul play noted. When Caleb Harrison was found dead in his bed in the same house, even though it was 3 years later, this time there was too much suspicion for the authorities to do anything other than investigate it as a homicide and take a closer look at the other 2 deaths. Since the abduction case had concluded, Caleb had been granted sole custody of the children, with Melissa allowed access every second weekend. In the lead up to his death, Caleb had been splitting custody every other week, and she had petitioned the courts to make this arrangement permanent. However, this was to be reverted back to the very limited arrangements the next day, after Caleb's death. 2 weeks after the death, she applied for sole custody, and then she and Christopher took the kids and disappeared again, although authorities tracked them this time. In January of 2014, they were both arrested and charged with the murder of Caleb Harrison and his mother, Bridget. Christopher would confess to the killing that same night. In April of 2010, he had gone to visit Bridget with a fake note claiming it was from the kids. When she let him in, he hit and then strangled her to death. Similarly, with Caleb, he snuck into the house with the key that he had taken from one of the kids and hit him with a baseball bat when he was in bed. Although Caleb fought back, Christopher overpowered and killed him. He claimed Melissa had no knowledge of this, and he had committed both of these murders to help better her custody case. When Melissa and Christopher believed they were alone, he spoke to her, letting her know that he was, quote, taking the rap for her. Authorities looked into their search history and found incriminating terms about what would happen if a grandparent that took custody died, and how long does it take for someone to pass out when they're being strangled just prior to Bridget's murder. Just before Caleb's death, there were searches for, quote, easy ways to kill and get away with it. Melissa pled not guilty at the trial in September 2017, but she was accused by the prosecution of being more than an accessory after the fact, which was what she was claiming. Christopher Fattori was charged alone for the death of Bill Harrison, second-degree murder, to which he pled not guilty. He tried to plead not guilty to a lesser charge of manslaughter for the death of Caleb, but this was rejected as there was strong evidence of pre-planning in the searches. He would eventually be found not guilty of the murder of Bill Harrison, but guilty of murder in the cases of Bridget and Caleb. Melissa was found guilty in the murder of Caleb, but her portion of the trial regarding Bridget resulted in a mistrial. They both received life sentences with mandatory minimums of 25 years. As of the time of writing, Christopher Fattori is still behind bars, where he is likely to remain for the rest of his life, with the appeals process exhausted. Melissa was eventually found not guilty of the Bridget Harrison murder at a retrial the next year, and appealed her murder conviction in the Caleb murder. On March 17th of 2025, it was reported that she had pled guilty to a charge of manslaughter in the case of Caleb, and was given a 15-year sentence. This meant she would get an almost immediate release, going back to jail for a single day, since she had already served more than 10 years behind bars in total. This was her third trial after the mistrial and the appeals. She had gotten remarried to a female prison guard in 2018, and this latest development means that as of the time of writing, she is free to reunite with her wife and her 6 children. Whether that has happened or not is not known. And that's the end of the video, folks. I'd like to thank all of my patrons for their continued support, especially those whose names you're seeing on screen now, particularly TG Kane, Emma, Sonny Hauser, Charlie Boyle, Bailey Cosmic Black Metal 96, Mimi, Pizza Guy 111, Light into Sunlight, KJ Musical, Losanna, Brandon Field, Helen Korn, Kyle, BAN, Brendan O'Connell, Adam Clayton, Count Ligula, Danny Jade, Paul Mendoza, Alex Christmas, Bella Schwartz, Belle Siegel, Stimulate, Inquisitor Zarius, and Dick the Cock Johnson and the Woodmaster of WrestleMania 69 or Maybe Not Dude. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.